Everyone, it's attorney Matthew Legan Sanchez here. We've talked a lot about divorce, but today let's talk about marriage. Let's talk about common law marriage in New Mexico. A common law marriage is the ability to get married without a valid license and ceremony. In New Mexico, if you don't have those two things, if you don't have a ceremony and if you don't have a license, then you don't have a marriage. Other states, they have different requirements. One state is going to be different from another state. One state may require a ceremony, one may not. One may have different requirements of what constitutes a valid marriage. So you're going to have to look at each state, state by state. Now, New Mexico, though, no ceremony, no license, no marriage. And ultimately, if you don't have a marriage, then you don't need to get a divorce because there isn't a valid marriage to begin with. No, New Mexico is not a common law marriage state. That means you can't form a valid marriage without a license or a ceremony. Other states, for instance, you have Colorado, you have Texas, other states, you can get common law married in those states. They have certain requirements state by state. Maybe it's holding yourself out as being married, it's publishing that you're married, or living together, commingling bank accounts. Whatever their specific requirements are, you can get common law married in other states, such as Colorado and Texas, but not in New Mexico. This is where things get a little bit tricky. New Mexico isn't a common law marriage state, and you cannot get common law married in New Mexico. But if you have a valid common law marriage from Colorado or Texas or some other common law state, New Mexico will recognize that marriage. So for instance, let's say that you live in Colorado and you meet all of Colorado's requirements, you have a common law marriage, you get married without a license, without a ceremony is required in New Mexico, and then you move to New Mexico. Yes, New Mexico will recognize your common law marriage. And if you've been living in New Mexico for 6 months, then you could get a divorce in New Mexico because you are common law married. You know, can I take a vacation to Colorado, catch a Rockies game, and then become common law married if I say that we're married and we hold ourselves out as we're married? No. You have to have significant contacts with the other state in order to be common law married there. So Colorado, for instance, I have a friend, I've known him for a decade. He's been living in Colorado for about 5 years or more, and him and his wife, they held themselves out as married. They met all of the Colorado's requirements for common law marriage, and now they're common law married because they were living in Colorado and they were working in Colorado. They met all of the common law marriage requirements, and now they're married. But for instance, if they were still living in New Mexico and then just traveled to Colorado or to Texas, they couldn't become common law married. So if you're on vacation, if you take a trip and you go to Austin, Texas, or you go to Denver, and you have a wild night and you say, we're married, we are common law married. It doesn't work that way. You can't become common law married that way. So when you come back to New Mexico, you don't have to worry, oh man, am I common law married? No, you're not. So you don't have to worry there. States near New Mexico that New Mexico will recognize common law marriage, the two main ones, Texas and Colorado. So if you have a valid common law marriage in Texas or Colorado, New Mexico will recognize that common law marriage. And if you're thinking, do I have to get divorced? Yes. If you're common law married in Texas or Colorado and you're now living in New Mexico, you're gonna need to get divorced, and you're gonna need to meet the jurisdiction requirements in New Mexico. So you're gonna have to live in New Mexico for 6 consecutive months, and then you can get divorced in New Mexico. Are you common law married? Then yes, you're gonna have to get a divorce in order able to dissolve your marriage. So if you were married common law in another state and you're now living in New Mexico, you're gonna need to live here for 6 months, and then you can get a divorce in New Mexico. But yeah, you're gonna need to get a divorce if you've been common law married. But if you're not common law married, if you just held yourself out as married in a state such as New Mexico you can't form common law marriage, you're not gonna have to worry about it. Do you still have questions about your divorce or if you're married or not? If so, give me a call. Call Matthew Ligon Sanchez, call me at 505 Sanchez. We'll talk about your case and we'll get to the bottom of things.